Hey, it's Mike here, and today we're going to finally look at the vegetarian myth, a book that some people view as the final word telling them not to go vegan. In particular, we are going to examine some of the claims of its author, Lierre Keith, a ex-vegan with a grudge. So we're going to look at a variety of her ideas about vegan health risks and nutrients and see if they hold up to the research. All right, let's go. Her story is that she was a doe-eyed vegan for 20 years and then it destroyed her health.
I was a vegan for 20 years. So I have been as far into that world as really you can get. And in the end, the only thing that really pulled me out was that my health collapsed completely.
Seems like she really should have called it the vegan myth, because most of the time she's just attacking vegans. But wait, there's a little bit of a hiccup in her argument here. It appears that she may have never actually been fully vegan.
Because I never cheated on beef, but I certainly binged on eggs and dairy every chance I got.
So she was a cheating vegan, aka not vegan, or chegan, whatever you want to call it. Either way, the crux of Lierre's claims is that a vegan diet long-term will guaranteed destroy your health, as is evidenced by every vegan and vegetarian she ever met.
And, you know, there's a whole generation of us now who have been through this. I mean, we tried it didn't work, our health collapsed, and then we had to find something new.
So long-term vegans aren't healthy. Well, let's take her anecdotes and put them up against science and see what we get. Looking to the Adventist vegans, we have a long-term vegan population here. The Adventist 2 study looked at a portion of the Adventist vegans, about 5,500 of them, and put them up against their vegetarian and meat-eating neighbors. The result? They died 15% less than their meat-eating neighbors. Yes, their mortality rates were 15% lower. But in case you find anecdotes more convincing than science, how about Ellsworth Wareham, who was mowing his own lawn at 100 after being vegan for 50 years? He's like 102, 103 now. Nobody even knows. We lost count. Or Jahina Malik, who has been vegan for life and is a professional bodybuilder, but according to Lierre.
And the problem with protein that comes from plant sources is that it's wrapped in cellulose. And we have no way to digest cellulose. You know, we're not ruminants. So we can't get to the protein. That's why it's called poor quality protein, is because we can't get to it and it's not complete. So right away you've got the protein problem. And so it's not really assimilated by humans.
You can't digest it. You know, I almost thought maybe I'm taking this out of context here, but nope, she's actually talking about nutrients and things that vegans can't get here. It's in context. Let's use some critical thinking here. Is a legume, like a bean, wrapped in so much fiber that you can't digest the protein? How about a nut? How about any human plant food? No. And this study emphasizes the hypocrisy of this when you realize that vegans have higher blood levels of protein than omnivores. And it's even more laughable that she's trying to scare you away from eating fiber when 97% of people are fiber deficient. There are more claims where that one came from, but at this point we should ask, where does she get her information from? What kind of references was she using in her book, for example? Let's look to an Amazon review that was done by a non-vegan PhD. Of the 207 references in the book, 30% of them are websites, 7% are magazines, only 15% are journals, and 46% are other books. And she actually cited Wikipedia 5 times, the classic low-quality source. So I actually cited 2/3 as many studies in my last video as she did in her entire book. Moving on, so what were all of those health problems that she got as a chegan anyway?
Right. So first off, I ended up with really bad blood sugar issues, which is very common. And I would say I pretty well destroyed my insulin receptors because I did it for so long.
This is funny because Adventist vegans had a 78% lower risk of all diabetes than their meat-eating neighbors, who she is telling you to eat like to prevent diabetes.
The longer-term damage I did is I ended up with degenerative disc disease in my spine, so my spine's basically coming to pieces.
Sadly, this just isn't that much of an accomplishment anymore. From this study in 2002, they found unequivocal spinal disc degeneration in people aged 11 to 16. This is a result of clogged spinal arteries, and it's very possible that eating a standard American diet for the first part of her life, rich in meat and eggs and dairy, clogged her back arteries. Then if you go on a vegan diet and eat a lot of processed foods, you have an unhealthy vegan diet, or you
Binged on eggs and dairy every chance I got.
It's very possible that you would not reverse that clogging and your spine would continue to be starved of nutrients over that period of time. But we do have whole food vegan diet trials showing that you can rapidly unclog arteries. Now, we don't know exactly what happened in her case, but in general, vegan inner artery thickness, the measure of how clogged their arteries are, is better than marathon runners. Is quite amazing. But she blames it on vegans just having a lower level of overall bone health from various nutrients. But do vegans' bones just snap? Well, from this study, which had an average age of 62, vegans had the same bone density as meat eaters.
So it's things like bone broth, which of course traditional people around the world understand is really vital to health.
Or livers or organs.
The myths around bone broth never cease to amaze me, but no, you do not just magically transplant the collagen in bone broth into your joints. It is broken down into amino acids in a thing called digestion, and it's no calcium silver bullet either. You would have to drink 11 cups of bone broth to meet your daily needs, and as this study shows, adding vegetables to bone broth increases calcium by 7 times.
There are fat-soluble nutrients that you cannot get from plants. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, vitamin E. You cannot get these from plants. You've got to eat them. No, they don't exist. They don't exist in plant foods.
And they're essential.
And they are essential. You will die without them.
It doesn't appear that she knows what essential means in this context, that we can't make it ourselves. So non-essential amino acids we can make ourselves. Essential amino acids we have to get from food, both of which are in plants. We make vitamin A from beta-carotene, and there's so much of this in plants like sweet potatoes and carrots that even people with genetically low conversion rates can easily make enough. And looking at this study from Switzerland, we see that vegans do not have a statistically significantly higher level of vitamin A deficiency. Now, she makes a big deal about vitamin A in other interviews, but clearly it's not the issue that she makes it out to be. And looking at vitamin D, we can make it from the sun, and as this study showed, we can get enough vitamin D from UV-treated mushrooms to raise our blood levels. And looking to the widespread deficiency in northern climates, even among meat eaters, it's probably a good idea that everybody supplements in those climates. K2, again, is not essential. We make it from K1, and ironically, the highest source is a plant source known as natto, which is apparently gross, but you can also get it from sauerkraut. And lastly, vitamin E. According to the NIH, the best form is alpha-tocopherol, which is literally in almonds and a ton of other plant foods.
You cannot get these from plants. You've got to eat
all.
them. No, they don't exist. They don't exist in plant foods. You will die without them.
You know, looking at blatant falsehoods like this of hers, it just brings me back to this one epic Facebook skirmish I had with this girl, and I probably cited, 10 or so studies. She didn't really cite any studies, and at the end she just said, here's a link to the vegetarian myth. Like, I'll just leave this here. Screw all your science. This is the ultimate authority on vegan diets. This woman is the ultimate authority on vegan diets. Oh, and it doesn't stop there.
Another problem is CoQ10, which is only available in meat. We
also happen to make our own CoQ10, which is also known as ubiquinone because it's so ubiquitous. So ubiquitous, in fact, that it's in a variety of plant foods, including spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, and way more.
Only available in meat.
Ounce for ounce peanuts have as much as beef. And it's an antioxidant, and while we're looking at antioxidants, it could be worth noting that this study of 3,100 foods found that plant foods on average have 64 times as much antioxidants as animal foods do. It's almost funny how she can just be so outright wrong about basic biology, except that people listen to her. Like, the lady interviewing her is like, oh, yes, Leah, yes! Oh, everything you're saying is true!
Whoa.
Aha!
Heme iron is only available in meat.
Let's do a lightning round here. Heme iron is one of the reasons that the WHO classified red meat as a probable carcinogen. Moving to an anecdote, my ex-roommate actually cured her lifelong anemia by going vegan and eating whole plants. And if you eat vitamin C with your iron, it can become more bioavailable than heme iron, than animal iron. And back to the Swiss study, looking at plasma ferritin, a measure of iron stores in the body. Across all 3 groups, they were roughly the same prevalence of insufficient levels. Moving on, in general, she takes the paleo view that grains and agriculture are evil and our ancestors magically had perfect health.
Humans are long and tall and strong, and they keep all their teeth, and their bones are disease-free until you hit agriculture. And then suddenly everybody shrinks 6 inches and they lose their teeth and their bones are riddled with disease.
But this is a rewriting of history as an excuse to eat high animal fat diets. We did eat grains at the dawn of Homo sapiens over 100,000 years ago, cooked starch granules.
And we have a concept, the diseases of civilization. There is no such thing as the diseases of hunter-gatherers.
They were invincible. We don't even know how they died at the ripe age of 30.
You can read statements in medical journals. Well, we all know the Eskimo don't get cancer. And that's why. They weren't eating agricultural foods.
So your book said that people, the hunter-gatherer tribes, were not only had no cancer, but also no heart disease.
No heart disease, no diabetes, all those diseases, autoimmune diseases.
Well, sadly, their lifespan is horrible. Oh, but that's just westernization, right? Nope, even their mummies had atherosclerosis, about 60% of them. Another instance where she's just outright wrong, did not look at the science, yet continues to make the claim.
We have the digestive system of a carnivore. We have a very acidic stomach, and that's for splitting protein.
Now, it is my belief that despite eating meat in history, we simply did not eat enough to adapt to it. I will stick to external features because she claims that we didn't need those sharp teeth and claws because of our tools. Well, looking at our tongue, we do not have protein receptors. The most commonly choked on type of food that kills us is meat. Our stomachs are not strong enough to neutralize animal pathogens, and our stomachs are not large enough to take advantage of a fresh kill. True omnivores have stomachs that can consume 25% of their body weight. And our intestine to torso length ratio is that of an herbivore, and protein from meat ferments in our colon, releasing hydrogen sulfide gas, which shreds our DNA and can lead to colorectal cancer, as this study in the journal Meat Science mentions. Since I didn't do that justice, I will link to a video on that topic at the end, and she also believes that meat grew our brains. I have a video on why it was actually starch that grew our brains, also will be linked at the end and both below. She also spreads the notion that it's impossible to farm in an ecologically harmonious way without exploiting animals.
If it wasn't for those ruminants, it would turn into desert. Okay, it's absolutely crucial. You cannot have grasslands without ruminants.
Tell that one to the large veganic or vegan organic farming operations that are growing cereal grasses using crop rotation, which uses nitrogen-fixing plants, the same plants that get nitrogen for animals. Or you can just grow your nitrogen-fixing plants right in there with the grasses like the Three Sisters, like the Native Americans did. But this one wins as my favorite claim.
Meat is at least 100 times more nutrient dense than vegetable matter.
I'm gonna try and remain calm. It's gonna keep calm and science on. All right, let's just punch this in really quickly. Here's a serving of black beans versus a serving of her almighty grass-fed beef. 100 times more minerals, for example? Nope, quite comparable. Now to a totally different type of point, the one that if Leora Keith magically watches this, I hope that she at least hears, and that is that she considers herself a radical feminist, yet animal farming relies heavily on the exploitation of female animals. This is the case with factory farming or small farms. Look at the dairy industry. It's forced impregnation. It's stealing the mother's calves away from them and then repeatedly stealing their milk and making them produce. Eggs is the exploitation of hens, of female chickens. We have bred them to lay 20 times as much eggs as their bodies are meant to, which cannot be comfortable and leads to things like osteoporosis and egg binding and high rates of ovarian cancer. I don't think a radical feminist should be paying people to radically violate animals just so they can eat food. Well said. In the end, her whole anti-vegan narrative is based off personal anecdotes. It's not based off science. When we actually inspect her claims, they don't match up with our biology. Look at the antioxidant CoQ10, which she says we have to get from animals. No, we can make it ourselves, and we can get it from plants, a lot of it from plants. And it turns out plants have 64 times as many antioxidants on average than animal foods anyway. And things like vitamin E, she says you can't get them from plants. That's just complete nonsense. And then the amazing tactic of scaring you away from a vegan diet because of her insulin levels when vegans have massively lower levels of all diabetes. But I want to emphasize that I'm not here to say that vegans are invincible. Vegans can still get sick, but they have lower levels of all of these diseases. And a whole food vegan diet can reverse many of them, including heart disease, our leading killer. Our leading killer. Vegan diet's clearly held to a ridiculous standard. If you had a 90% lower chance of getting a certain disease on a vegan diet, still somebody's gonna get it, and they might decide to write a book about it because, yeah, it was their experience, but also because you can make a lot of money telling people good news about their bad habits. In the end, it's her word, her anecdotes against studies showing 15% lower mortality, 78% lower risk of total diabetes. I didn't even mention 15% lower risk of cancer, and of course that unclogging of arteries from a whole food vegan diet and the reversing of all those other diseases. So in conclusion, it appears to be the vegetarian myth squared. And I do want to say, I would be inclined to give Leora some more slack. She wrote the book in 2009. We did have good research then, but we have even better research now. but she was still saying this stuff as of 2016, and she's still probably saying it today, yet she has mountains of science against her. Final point, if you're having health issues on a vegan diet, see a plant-based doctor, and if you are really afraid of lacking certain nutrients, look at it head on, get a blood test, and see what these levels actually are before just deciding that you're deficient in something, like naked avocado. Alright, there are hours and hours more of Learic Heath claims out there, like ones how veganism is bad for the environment, but we're just gonna leave it there. Stay sane. Alright, that's it for today. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on Lear's claim, and as usual, feel free to like the video, hit that notification bell, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.